I got out of isolation yesterday, first practice back yesterday. Um, Glad to be back. It was our first practice with everybody in our program, not in isolation or quarantine in 19 days. So it was much needed to get back together. We got a lot of work to do to get better and improve, get back to, the 1000% focus on the way that we want to be as a basketball team on the court.
Roger Wallace, go ahead, please.
Shaka, what was it like watching that game as a coach / spectator last week?
Not very enjoyable.
But I mean, you're at home. How helpless of a feeling is it, I guess?
Yeah, I wasn't at home. I was in isolation. I had to leave home to be away from my family. Yeah, I'm not really going to talk much about that, Raj, that game.
Kirk Bowles, go ahead, please.
I can talk about the game itself, but I'm not going to really talk about myself.
Kirk Bowles?
Yeah, Shaka, I hope you're feeling well and 100%. One question I'd like to ask you a little bit off target is conference tournaments, because there's been some talk about maybe they're unnecessary this year and just added too much added risk. I was curious what your opinion on that topic is.
Yeah, it's a great question, Kirk. And I think it's like a lot of other things in this debate, in this time period. There's no perfect answer. I mean, one thing that I think we've all learned over this time is that, certainly the powers that be want to play these games. And the conference tournament is no different. So as far as I know, that's what our conference is planning to do. To me, I think that as I always talk about, there needs to be extreme consideration just given to kind of the total effect of everything on the players, student athletes, where their minds are at, how they're doing with everything. And I mean, let's be honest, there's the NCAA prioritizes the NCAA tournament. The conferences prioritize the conference games and the conference tournament. Individual programs prioritize what's best for them. A game like the Oklahoma game, we were certainly far from full strength. You certainly could have made an argument that, it was a tough position for our guys to be in. But according to the conference's rules, we were told to play. The other day against Kentucky, and again, I don't know anything about their situation. Don't know anything about their, how they handle things with their health department up there. But they had a positive and the game got canceled. So we're trying to roll with the punches, man. We're trying to do the best we can. We're fortunate and appreciative to be together. Like I said, back on the court together as a whole for the first time in a while. And then obviously we got an exciting game coming up tomorrow.
A quick follow-up, would you consider opting out of the Big 12 tournament? Like I've heard some coaches at least considering it as an option.
I'll do whatever our players want to do. Those guys have done such a good job just hanging in there and navigating through some challenging parts of this, some of which you guys are aware of, some of which you guys are not aware of. So listen, I just had COVID. So, from my standpoint, it's all about what's best for the guys, our staff. I'll go to wherever to play, if that's what the guys want to do and if that's what makes sense.
Brian Davis, go ahead.
Hey, Shaka, good to see you again. You kind of touched on it there. Let's be honest, we don't understand everything that these players have gone through. So I guess this is kind of what you're talking about. Should we be playing these games at all?
I don't know. I mean, I know a couple coaches, Brian, whose teams were shut down earlier this season. And I can tell you just from talking to them that that's not the simple solution either. And that has a whole host of, mental and emotional problems for the players as well. I've always said from the beginning, we're going to defer to the doctors and what they think is best. I think it is a little frustrating, to be honest, that there is a wide variety of opinions, even amongst the doctors. And again, one thing that I've learned going through this myself is that because COVID is relatively new, it's not like we have years and years of experience dealing with this from a medical standpoint. So they say it's safe to play the games, then we're going to give our guys the opportunity to do that. I think if you talk to the majority of our guys, they want to play. But that doesn't mean there hasn't been moments where for some of them, they've been like, wow, this is really, really strange. And, some thinking through, what should we be doing?
Sure. And as a follow-up to that, I mean, how do you gauge everybody's headspace right now? I mean, you're not exactly playing, St. Mary Frances of the Blind tomorrow. You're playing the number 2 team in the country.
Yeah. That's good. We don't want to play St. Mary's Francis of the Blind. We're in the Big 12. Guys came to Texas to play in the Big 12. And ever since I got here, this has been, arguably the toughest league in the country. I mean, everybody says that about their conference. I'm not being negative about anyone else's league, but this is what you sign up for when you come to play or coach in this league. So our guys are excited. We had a game scheduled against Baylor in December, and we were all set to go up there, and the game got canceled. And, kind of like the other day when guys were getting ready to go to Kentucky, the guys were really disappointed. So these guys are looking forward to playing. They know it's a heck of a challenge. Baylor's undefeated and has played terrific basketball and, first place in our league, all that stuff.
Dustin McComas.
Yeah, Shaka, yesterday when you get back, I mean, how much was yesterday spent in terms of Baylor prep, but also, too, just kind of getting everybody back on the same page again? I mean, you mentioned it's the first time in 19 days that you had everybody back in practice. This has been an unusual few weeks. Was it all Baylor prep, or was there just some time talking amongst the guys like, hey, what questions do you have? What headspace are you in? What do we need to address here as we're all back on the court together again?
Well, I mean, those are ongoing conversations, Dustin. But to your point, as important as the Baylor game is, and, we're going to put everything we have into preparing and trying to win that game, by far the most important thing for our team is moving forward, getting better. And that's not just over these next couple days, but that's over, the season for everyone can be up to 9 more weeks long. And so over the course of that time, I told the guys, there's only two things that matter for us as it relates to basketball. One is getting better as a team and individually. And then the other one is being in our circle, which is the components of who we are when we're at our best, when we get in practice and when we get in the games. That's it. Nothing else matters. And that's where our focus is. So certainly there was conversation about that. I probably overdid it a little bit yesterday myself, being my first day back. But I was excited, to be back with the guys, and it was a good practice.
And to be clear, do you anticipate having all of your guys available tomorrow? I know there's some weird protocol deals, like Brock was able to be with the team, but he couldn't play. And I know that we don't totally understand that whole process, but do you anticipate having all your guys available tomorrow?
As long as they pass their COVID test today. We had everyone available yesterday, like I said, for the first practice in 19 days. So as far as up to this moment right now, everyone is available.
Nick Morrill, go ahead.
Hey, Shaka, it's good to talk to you again. Just as every season progresses, I know y'all obviously want to evaluate and gauge where you're at with each game and each week. That's a little bit different to do this year because you're going weeks at a time without playing. You have guys that are not at practice, coaches like yourself that are not at practice. How difficult is the evaluation process this year compared to years past where it's been more normal?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the biggest difference is, it's never a linear progression, but I think in a normal year, you feel like there's a progression where November to December, you really want to see, okay, we're doing this better. This player has made progress in these areas. Then you get to January, okay, we've made progress here. Here's some statistical evidence of that. And then moving into February, and you want to be playing your best at the end. I think, and this is not unique for our team at all. This is people around the country are dealing with this. It's just much more disjointed of a season because of some of the disruptions. Sometimes the disruptions have nothing to do with your team. Like we mentioned that first Baylor game that got canceled, that had nothing to do with our team at that moment. They had some issues up there. Kentucky. I was not going to be able to go to Kentucky, but everybody else was. Sometimes, and those, I think, can be almost as detrimental to, your progress and your, as you said, your evaluation of where you are, because, let's be honest, like if we'd have played Baylor, just using that as an example, on December, whatever that day was, 13th, we would know a lot more, just having played that game. Every time you don't get to play a game, it takes away from that opportunity. And, we've had quite a few games canceled recently. Our practices, as I mentioned, there was a stretch there the week where I ended up testing positive. We were not shut down completely, but the vast majority of people on our team were in quarantine or isolation. There was one day I did a workout with 2 guys. So, it's just it's a unique time. And again, this is not anything that I'm saying we're different than anyone else. I'm sure everyone's going through this.
And then just real quick on Kai, especially in the last game, it looks like he's trying to be more aggressive in attacking and putting the ball on the ground and trying to create plays. And it's been a little bit of a mixed bag for him at points, I think. But is that an area where you want him to be more attackive and aggressive with the ball in his hands?
Sometimes, but he tried to do too much in that first half. Absolutely. And he wasn't the only one. I think it's a fine line for Kai. Kai is such a unique player. It's hard to pigeonhole him into a position if you're trying to do that. He has such a bright future. Like, there's so many things that you can look at and see him do in a 1-on-0 setting, 1-on-1 setting, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, that maybe he's not yet consistently doing 5-on-5 just because of the other bodies on the floor. And he knows that, and he wants to work towards that, and we want him to. But you know what? At the end of the day, the thing that we need him to do more than anything is play extremely hard and go grab the ball. And he did have 10 rebounds in our last game, which I believe is the first time he's had double-figure rebounds. He had 9 deflections. I thought in the second half, he played significantly better than he did in the first half. So to answer your question, it's, you know, we want him to keep asserting himself, but we also want him to understand what are the things that he can be most effective doing. And being an athletic guy at 6'11", just using that athleticism and length to impact the game, particularly on the defensive end and on the glass.
In the essence of timing, I need to limit everyone else to one question each to roll through as many as I can. Jim Vertuno, you're up next, please.
Hey, Shaka, I want to follow up here because I was continuously curious that Texas never announced any kind of a shutdown. You said early on that under the conference rules, quote, we were told to play. Who told you to play? The administration, the Big 12? Did you not want to play? Can you expand on that, please?
The Big 12 has a rule where if you have 6 players available, then you are supposed to play.
Cedric Golden, please.
We, went through a stretch there without divulging any individual information about any players, where we did have some positive tests over the course of about a little over a week. I was the last of those. And again, everyone has their own rules about how these sorts of things are handled. Kentucky, just using them as an example, just went on what they call a 48-hour pause because they had a positive test. Maybe they had more than one. So, yeah, I mean, we were far from being full strength, but according to the Big 12 policy and guidelines, we were set to play. I did not say that we didn't want to play. I wasn't there. I think you can tell. That was a very, very difficult day for me. And I'm not even really going to get it. I'll talk about the game like I did about how Kai played, but I'm not going to get into much more than that.
Cedric Golden, please.
Hey, Shaka, good to see you back. The guys on this call have been around you for years. I got to ask you, you sound changed. What's going on?
Not much other than I just recovered from COVID. I'll be honest with you. I had significant symptoms from it. So this was not a walk in the park for me, not saying it has been for anyone else. And I definitely, when you go through that kind of stuff, it certainly, swirls some things around your mind. So that's a much longer conversation than we have time for now. I'll be happy to talk to you about it sometime, maybe after the season. But there's a lot up there, for me. And I think just to sum it up, maybe a prioritization of what matters most, both as it relates to our team and also as it relates to my family, loved ones. The one thing when you have this thing is, and I'm sure other people maybe went through this, is it certainly gives you a little bit of a second sight to see some things a little more clearly.
Bob Ballou, please.
Shaka, glad you're back. Glad your team was able to be together. Just to talk a little basketball about tomorrow night. Nobody's come within closer than 8 points of this Baylor team this year. What really stands out to you about how good they are? I know there are a million things, I'm sure, but what really makes this team go?
Well, they've got a terrific group, and I think college basketball was really robbed when that game against Gonzaga was canceled, because that would have been, just those teams have been so much head and shoulders above everyone else this year, honestly. And I don't know which one's better. I mean, they're both just phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, Baylor's, their guys really seem to truly enjoy playing with one another. They have a passion for winning and winning plays. It's one thing to be excited about, when the ball goes in and when the score is lopsided in your favor, but they just have a passion for making the plays that go into creating that. And I think that's very rare, particularly over the course of a long season. Again, their personnel is terrific. Scott Drew's done a great job. He and his staff deserve a ton of credit. And I think they're, for having a team with so many, guards that are really good with the ball in their hands, they just do a terrific job playing team basketball, sharing with each other, creating for each other. And, they seem like they really get along well.
Last one to Joe Cook, please.
You talk about gratitude a lot this year. You've mentioned that over and over and over. So yesterday, was that basically the embodiment of, why y'all are gracious for these opportunities? Like, we're all back, we're all here. It's as normal as it kind of be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's easy to take something for granted if you get to do it every day. But if you go 19 days without having a full group together, and then you get to be back, particularly for me, it just happened to be my first day out of isolation. It's a very emotional and like moving thing, even just to be out there trying to get better at guarding the ball screen or transition defense or whatever it may be. Extremely grateful for being out there with those guys and the chance to work towards moving forward. And like I said, we're going to do everything we can to go after this game. And I'm so excited for our guys that the arena won't be completely empty. That's, I know some of you guys have mentioned it, that, man, it really was a heck of a difference for the players over these past several weeks, however long that's been, where we haven't been able to have any fans. So excited, for our guys, that their families are going to be able to come, and that some of our fans will be able to come. But yeah, just the gratitude is something that, again, when you've gone through having it and, feeling the way that I felt, it puts it back at the front of your mind.